Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have you all here with us today for the Body Mind Living podcast. And I'm actually extremely excited for our interview today with one of my favorite people, Miss Mary Pat Curran. And am I saying that right now that I'm starting the podcast?
I know. It's
It came
Curran.
out
It's all good.
Curran,
Curran. Yep.
like
I know you're
Curran,
like
like Curran.
Curran. I'm like, well, let's go. That's all right.
It's one of
Close
those
enough.
things of like, I know who you are, and then you start talking and it's recorded and you second guess yourself. So we'll just do like take two. Hi, this is live. And hi, and welcome everybody to the Body Mind Living podcast. Today we have Mary Pat Curran with us. I still
Curran.
messed it up, didn't I? Curran. See, look at this. All right, Curran. Got it. Mary Pat Curran is a licensed massage therapist and also the owner of Intentional Flow. Do you like how I just keep going?
Yes.
Where she coaches her clients using her gifts of presence and possibility. I love that. Mary Pat, also known as MP here affectionately in the Body Mind community, was an educator of adults and youth for 13 years prior to attending massage school. In 2013, she opened her own business, and in 2018 began offering Body Mind coaching as a missing piece for her clients' transformation. Mary Pat loves helping her clients learn more about themselves so that they can grow into their intentions without having to be someone else to succeed. Hot damn, I want to read that again. Mary Pat loves helping her clients learn more about themselves so that they can grow into their intentions without having to become someone else to succeed. Through embodying their unique value, goals, and desires, MP's clients not only reach their goals, they become who they are meant to be. She's originally from Chicago. MP currently resides in Lexington, Kentucky with her hubby and 1 out of 2 adult children and, of course, that adorable little puppy. So, hi, what's going on, MP? How are you today?
I am good. So glad to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. And I want to share a quick story, put you on the spot before we dive in today. And our conversation today is really around self-acceptance. And I am thrilled for this conversation because I think the perspective that you bring into this, as well as some of the tools that you bring into it, are really unique. You have an interesting spin on this. And I want to give a little story. So here's my quick story. At Body Mind Live, which is our coach training workshop. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
No, they're like, which story is it going to be?
There's so many. So Body Mind Live is our live 4-day coach training workshop. It's amazing. And one of the days we have a live practical. And where our coaches come and they do a body mind session with each other. And the day that MP was there, I remember I was sitting in the room just observing, available for questions. And I was mesmerized watching you work. Because I literally felt like you had roots that went all the way into the core of the earth. And also like you grew like literally like a tree, like you were all the way connected to like the furthest point in the universe that your soul could touch coming out of your head. And it was just like this deep presence that is very much just who you are. And one of my favorite things about you is whenever I am in connection with you, I feel like one of your natural gifts is your ability to fully see somebody.
Thank you.
And so I think when we talk about self-acceptance, right? Like there's a level of, and it's funny, I think there's this level of you have to be willing to be fully seen to fully accept. And
yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
I would love for let's talk about this. If you were to define self-acceptance, what is that? What does that mean for you?
It means seeing who you are, all your faults, all your flaws, all your gifts, and just being like, okay, look, this is who I am, and this is what I have to offer. And I'm just going to touch on what you just said there, that you do have to be willing to be seen. So one of my other gifts is I give really good hugs. So when I give someone a hug, it's not just one of those, quick ones. I stand there and I hold it. And I can always tell if like someone's like not there. I'm like, okay, I'll just let that go. But it's so beautiful and yummy and delicious when someone's there and they allow themselves to be held. And it's like, and we get to that breath, and then there's that movement. It's like, I love that part. And so that's kind of what I would say self-acceptance is like for me.
Well, and I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. And I think it's so interesting in the coaching world that a lot of times, in coaching, we talk about, this path to becoming and setting goals and this thing that always seems to be ahead of ourselves. And you have this magical ability to like bring people here. And it seems so simple. And at the same time, like, I know for myself, this idea of self-acceptance and this path to self-acceptance, there's always this like chasm. There's always like this little rift of like, I can't fully accept myself because I'm not fully there yet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, there's still a lot of comparison. Like even last week, I'm like, I watched Lori J's and Lori H's interviews the same day. And I'm like, I have to follow that? Shit. The hell am I going to say? But then I took a step back. I'm like, okay, I'm here. She wouldn't have invited me in if I didn't have something. So let's just settle in and just be who we are. So
I love that. I love that. So can you give us a little bit of kind of that background, that journey? You have 13 years working with children and adults, and I'm just like, tell me how you went from being a teacher, an educator, to massage therapist, to coach. Can you kind of give us that background and bring us up to date?
Sure. So when I went to college, I think I always wanted to do some sort of healing therapy-ish kind of thing, but I didn't want to do nursing. I didn't want to do business at the time. And I ended up in teaching. And I taught elementary school. And there were times when things would be stressful at the school. Sometimes there were long periods of time where things were stressful. And I would help support my coworkers by giving them a little back rub, helping them breathe and just be like, hey, here we are. It's going to be okay. And they're like, oh, you should do this. I said, yeah, I know I should. I finally had the opportunity in 2012 to go to massage school. So that was wonderful to be able to do that. And yeah, and what I like about coaching is that it lets me expand on the presence that I bring to massage. Because my massages were more, I don't know, it wasn't just about the tissues and the physics, right? For me, it's always about a little bit more deeper. So coaching is that other piece that lets me bring my other ideas forward and allows me to share them with my clients. So that's what I love about it.
Well, I find it so interesting. Can I go back a little bit into this story? Because I come from a family of educators, a lot of teachers, professors, and right now, especially after this past year, the education is stressful. And I have a lot of compassion for teachers and a lot of compassion for my nieces and nephews who, all this stuff. And I just find it so interesting. And I know one of the things that you're going to share with us today are some tools that people can use in this journey of self-acceptance. But I almost feel like we have to look at what happens from a very early age that actually creates this disconnection, where our kids, and I'm curious, maybe this is my assumption, and I would love to hear your thoughts, but when it comes to like, there's testing and all these things of like, we put this expectation onto kids, and how does that impact them, in being able to accept themselves? Am I making sense?
I think so. So the way the system is right now, it's very compartmentalized.
Mm-hmm.
It's productivity based, not necessarily learning based. It's not what does this child need to learn. These are the standards, and that's what they have to go for. So when everything is broken down into those boxes and they seem unachievable for a variety of reasons, it's demoralizing for the teachers and for the students. So you're made to fit into a mold, right?
Yeah.
And even my students, I taught in private school for quite a while. There's expectations there as well. And as a young teacher, I had expectations that, weren't the best as well either. But you do try, like good teachers do their best to see the light and the gifts that each kid has. But when it's like a room of like 30 plus, it's kind of hard to have that time to like get one-on-one and be there.
Yeah, and you were talking before I pressed play on this. You were talking something about like a garden, right? And I almost feel like what I'm just imagining. I know we're looking at it through the lens of education right now, but just this idea of can you say more about this idea of like looking at people, looking at communities in this lens of being a garden versus a measurement and productivity in a box?
Yeah. So I'm going to have to swing a little bit into some of the tools that you introduced me to. So the Kolbe A assessment and human design. So in the Kolbe assessment, I'm kind of high on systems. So systems, if they're good ones, and I like them, then I like to use them. And so both of these two systems are a way for me to kind of, it is getting a little box, it is getting a label, but it lets me kind of use that as a way to acceptance. The label is a way towards acceptance, which is interesting.
Can you share a little bit about what the Kolbe measures for people who don't know what the Kolbe assessment is? And it's KOLBE for anybody listening.
Yes. So it measures how you handle information. Like, are you someone who you just want the facts and you move on? Or are you someone who likes to dive deep? It lets you know like where you fall on the spectrum for that. The next one up is systems or follow through. So some people are like, I hate systems. I want to make my own and just do it my way. And then there's other people who like, no, really? And there's other people who like to create systems and use them. And then we've got quick start, which is on the lower end of quick start are people like me who are like, I'm going to sit back and see if anything actually really needs to change, versus you, lovely Laura, who is higher on your quick start.
I'm a 9.
Jumps right in, right? Your risk taking. It's more about risk taking and your comfortability with that. And then there's implementation, which is how hands-on do you like to be when you create something? So you're either not so much, like you're better at summarizing and like handing it out to other people, like giving them the blueprint, versus being the one who's like hand making a cabinet and like in all the details. So
touching all these things and
yes.
And can I share a little bit, because like I never heard of Kolbe. I'm only a couple of years into it, and this is an assessment that we give all of our coaches, and so for us, we have an understanding and like a baseline of like, it helps us understand how people naturally operate and take action. Now, and this is where, from my understanding, and Mary Pat, maybe you can say more about this, as a coach, why is it so important for a coach to understand how people take action. Again, she said there's the fact finders, the people who like to gather information. There's the systems people who love to like follow the system or create the system, or I'm actually on the fringe of like follow and break. So I'll follow for a little bit and then I'm going to go break it. We have the quick starts, which I like how you frame that as risk, because I think a lot of times people hear that as like, I take action versus I don't, but it's more about your willingness to kind of jump, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the implementers, the people who like the tactile things. So I'm curious how, as a coach, is understanding, I mean, like this, I think is totally relevant for teachers, and I know they have assessment for kids, but like, I mean, gosh, I made my husband get it and it was so helpful. But why is it so helpful? Why as coaches, is it helpful to have this understanding for your clients?
Well, it helps with communication right off the bat, right? If you know someone's a high fact finder, then you can already anticipate that they're going to have a lot of questions, right? And so you want to be able to provide a resource for them to look up all the things that they need to look up before they take a step. But it's also good to know, hey, okay, you're high in fact finding. All right, what are the, and you taught me this, what are like the 3 things you really need to know? Okay, now go take action, right? Yeah. So we're able to meet them where they are, but also kind of give them some ways to take action or move within wherever they fall. Yeah. So as a coach, it's helpful for me. Like one of my current clients, he's a systems breaker. So like I had my nice little setup to go, and he's like, well, can we do it this way? I'm like, okay, we can. Like I had to be a little bit more flexible just because otherwise it wasn't going to work, because he needed more flexibility. So it's just helpful in communication and knowing what to expect and the expectations that I can expect from them. And I share mine with them too. So as they learn more about theirs, they can see how we're different, and maybe they can be like, okay, maybe Pat's a little bit more systems. Okay, they can work with that.
Well, and what I know has been helpful for me, and I think this is a common mistake that I think a lot of coaches make, and I got to be honest, I think before I had this tool, it's one that I made, is, and I think this is true for a lot of programs out there, which is part of why, like BodyMind, we're not trying to say, this is how you do it. It's like, here's a framework. We want to support you in bringing your natural brilliance into this framework so that you can be successful in a way that works for you. But I see a lot of programs out there and a lot of coaches out there that are like, this is how I do it. And if you don't do it this way, blah, 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 right? If you might take an online course where it's like I think I struggle with online courses, and I've learned that like I'm a low systems person. Like you're going to give me the system and I'm going to be like halfway through that and be like, fuck this, I'm going to do it my own way, but I know that. So what was helpful for me, let me just talk about myself. I am an action taker. I am a quick start. I jump. And when I started to learn about fact finders, and I think initially there was a little bit, I noticed some people were like, I'm not a quick start like Laura, I'm not going to be successful. And I'm like, That's not true. That's not true. It's that we get to support you, because when a fact finder knows how to gather that information, they start to actually operate like a quick start. It's really fascinating. So it's more of like, how do you take action and how can we support you in that process? And so it was just really helpful. So like as a coach, as somebody who is, here to support your clients, you got to recognize people don't act the same way you do. And instead of forcing your ideas of how they're supposed to do it on them, what if you supported in their natural abilities to get there? And I'm sure you want to say more about that. Yeah,
exactly.
Go ahead.
Well, even as I was going through BodyMind coaching, there's other quick starts, and I'm watching them. I'm like, fuck, I should be doing something, but I'm not ready to do something yet. So I had to learn that. I'm like, okay, that's where they are, because they are a quick start. This is where I am, because I'm a 2 in systems, 2 or 3 in systems. So, I mean, in quick start. So that allowed me to give myself some grace, right? And kind of like ease out of the comparison box a little bit.
I'm having this download and I'd love to hear more about it.
Sure.
There's something about like grace versus comparison.
Yeah.
That just when you say grace, I just felt like something opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Like how does that play a role in self-acceptance?
I think they're the same. Giving yourself grace, because you know who you are, it is accepting who you are. Like giving yourself grace and giving other people grace for being who they are, right? My hubby, he has not taken the Colby, but I'm pretty sure he's higher on Fact Finder. So I know, so we have a ton of books, right? It used to drive me crazy, but now I'm like, oh, he's a Fact Finder. He's just doing his thing, right? So I don't take it personally anymore. I don't take the way other people do things as a personal affront to me.
Which helps you lower that comparison thing, right? I know Casey. I had to learn. He is definitely a system breaker. He's higher on the fact finding, and I'm definitely a system breaker. And I realized he does this thing where, see, that's the universe telling me not to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. He does this thing where he watches TV and he takes off his socks, and his socks never make it into the hamper. And I came to realize that he just doesn't see it. Like he doesn't see the system of take my socks and put them into the laundry hamper. It just doesn't exist for him.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I was like, okay.
Oh, yes. Right.
It's just you are.
Okay. We'll work with that.
Well, and here's the other thing that's coming up, and maybe this is like my quick start thing. I think sometimes I personally struggle with this idea of giving myself grace, because if I know who I am and accept who I am I still allowed to grow and become somebody else?
I think you become more of who you are, not somebody else.
Will you say more about that?
Well, sure. As you lean more into who you are, and as you grow and change, and opinions change, what you like might change. But if you know how you typically do things, right? And you've talked about this before, that you recognize that when you are in contraction, and you mentioned that when Casey calls it out, he's like, all right, good things are going to come. You're crying or whatever in contraction, good things are going to come. So knowing your own process allows you to change the way you're supposed to. I'm not articulating that correctly, but the more you know your own process for how you navigate change, the easier it becomes. And if you're not trying to go against your own system, right? If you decide that you want to make a system for something, that's eventually going to drive you crazy, because what? Right? You like to break systems. So that's not going to make sense for you. So instead, you find someone else who can make that system for you if that's something you want to do.
Yeah. There's something that's happening just as you're saying this, and I agree. I see some listeners saying that they're loving this. Are you feeling this? When I think of your natural abilities, Mary Pat, it's literally there's a deepening in this. And again, as a 9 quick start, I have to say this everything that you're talking about right now is honestly one of my biggest challenges. And Porky came in to say hi. I think sometimes it's, do you hear her breathing? I think sometimes, and I hear this all the time, people come to us because they're like, tell me how to do the business, and tell me how to make the money, and tell me how I'm going to get there. And they want something that's outside of themselves. And everything that you're saying right here is the path, right? It's a deepening, it's a grounding, it's a coming home. Like when somebody comes to me and they're like, tell me how I'm going to make more money. I'm like, oh, let's get to know who you are, like,
Right.
and how fucking hard we fight that, right?
Yes.
It's so obvious to me that like, what would be possible in the world if instead of trying to force our way into more and external, measures of success, what if we said, I'm going to go on this journey of really deep self-acceptance and loving myself?
Yes.
I just want, like, what do you think about this? Am I crazy? What do you feel? Because this is your area.
Because as you, so I'm going to use these two things. So if you know your Colby, if you know your human design, if you know how your body talks to you, as you understand your own embodiment of the authority of your human design and how that plays out and how your body talks to you, all those things together makes the focus inward, right? So you're here, and it gives you the self-acceptance, it gives you the grace, and it lets you let other people off the hook. Because you're not going to get mad. So you wanted to talk about gardening. You're not going to get mad at a tomato plant because it's growing like it's supposed to, right? It needs support. So you're not going to get mad that, oh, fuck, I have no trellis. Well, then you got to get one because you planted a tomato plant, right? There's expectations that come with knowing your own ways of doing things, your own process, that you don't expect others to follow your process, right? I'm not you, Laura. I am not a quick start.
I'm not you.
No, I'm like back here, woo, right? So I can't expect myself to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give myself grace and acceptance and do it my way. And then I'm not going to expect somebody else to do it my way. It lowers it's also the word expectation, but it lowers my own guilt around not doing things someone else's way. It lets me do it myself. And then if I know the processes of others, and a lot of that you can get through observing, right? But if I know that, my husband has a bunch of books, then I'm not going to get mad at that because that's just what he does, right? It just allows everyone to be who they are. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest key, I think, to better communication, better relationships, and making the world like a little more smooth and easeful if you're not expecting everyone to do things your way.
And I also think something else I heard in this, like coming back to this example of a tomato plant, like if somebody's a tomato plant, the structures and things they need to be successful and bloom and, all of that things. But also if I'm like, oh, hey, I have tomatoes and cucumbers out right in my garden right now. Like if you're a tomato plant, if I'm a cucumber plant, there's also a level of like giving permission to ask for what you need.
Yes.
Like if you're a tomato plant, you're like, hey, I know that I'm going to need support on 1, 2, 3. Like I know I'm going to need the trellis. So let me just go ahead and ask for this instead of comparing myself to the other plant that doesn't need it, and we're very deep in this garden experience right now. and right. But I think sometimes like that self-acceptance and asking for what you need, especially as women, what the hell? Why is it all of a sudden our value decreases if we accept who we are and ask for what we need?
Oh, because we stop catering to everybody else.
Oh shit.
Because and you taught me this too during the first live. Okay. Someone was having a tearful moment. I grabbed the tissues and you're like, she didn't ask for those. I was like,
I don't even remember that.
Fuck. All right. So when we accept ourselves, when we stop anticipating the needs of everybody else, and I think as women, as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, we automatically do those things because it makes our life easier in some ways, right? Because like, so
Yes.
for you, James, it's like whatever time his nap time is, you're like, okay, he should be getting tired now. Like, things. But there's going to be a certain point where you're not going to like build that in anymore. You're going to have to wait until he's like, hey, I'm going to take a nap, right? So I kind of lost our question there a little bit, but it's by us accepting ourselves, we stop having our radar out all the time and like, oh, what does somebody need? What does somebody need? What does somebody need? Instead, we're like, what do I need?
Well, and can we talk to the ladies here? I mean, I know this is a community of healers, feelers, a lot of women, people who are energetically connected. And there's often this like, if I'm going to be helpful, I have to do these things for everybody else. And what you just said is like, I think sometimes we put the work that we should be doing for ourselves on other people. Like once everybody likes me, then I can like myself,
Right.
You're shifting this. And I think, again, I know it's like, I knew this when I was practicing massage, but I didn't do it.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about, and I think you just did, but like, if you are here to help other people, like this absolutely is the way to help other people, right?
Yes, because if you know yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you're asking for what you need and you're not overly anticipating everyone else's needs and you let them ask for what they need, then everyone is empowered to ask for what they need. Yeah.
Shit. Yes.
Yeah. You empower others by letting them ask for what they need.
Wow. I mean, it seems so profound, so simple, and it is so profound.
Yeah.
Very profound. Can you share a little bit, because I also want to talk about another passion of yours, human design.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what if you can, because I still don't know how to say what human design is, but can you talk a little bit about human design and how that has been another tool for you in this journey?
Yeah, I'm not going to go in the weeds to how it got created, but y'all can look that up yourself.
Please.
But it's a synthesis of other established philosophies, and it got synthesized in this one thing. But human design is a lot like Kolbe. And both of those are like, so Kolbe is more, you answer questions, so it can be like a personality test, but Kolbe tends to stay the same over time. Human design is based on your birth, your birth date and your place, and so it's more of an astrological, it's a little more woo. Okay.
It is a little more. I love this. Like I'm a practical woo. Before we get into human design, I call myself a practical woo. And what I love about this is like Kolbe is very practical. It's very much, like the science, like, the questions and like the brain analyzation.
How they break
and then
that down.
And then there's human design, which is again more of the woo side of things. And you're right, like for some reason they tend to like go together really well.
Yeah.
Which kind of blows my mind. So yes, can you share a little bit more about human design? But yes.
So human design so there's different types, just like in Kolbe, like there's different things. There's 4 or 5 types that human design comes in that you can be labeled, I guess is the best way to say. But again, each of those types has a different gift, and their gift is played out differently for humanity and how society moves itself, right? So you've got your manifestors that can, and all of them can, all types create, all types can be successful, but you do it through the way that works for the type that you are, right? So it's another process of like, okay, so I'm this type here. How do I work with that? Right? So do you want me to get specific, or how deep do you want me to go?
How deep do you want to go, Mary Pat?
I don't know, because we can go deep enough into the weeds. But
can you share a little bit, just like the types?
Sure.
The projector. Yeah. We'll just give a quick overview, and I know you can go plug in your birth date and location somewhere and get your thing. So yeah.
So manifestors are able to have an idea and just take it and run with it. And the way that they do that best is like have their idea, check in with themselves first. And that's what I like about human design too. It goes along with body, mind, living, is that there's an embodiment piece. There's like, you got to pay attention to yourself to know if something is right for you, and how you go about do that is different for a variety of reasons. But there is an embodiment piece. There is a part of listening to your body. So once like you and your body agree, yeah, this is an idea to follow, the best way manifestors can get stuff done is to just tell people around them, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. All right. And they get started and they go fast, but they don't have the energy to keep it going all the time. So they need some help from these other types called generators, which there's generators and manifesting generators who have this sacral energy that the manifestors don't have. And the majority of the population are a generator type. So manifestors are like 20%, and I think projectors are 10. Not sure.
Something like that.
But so let's just say there's an idea. Like let's just say it's a business idea, all right? Manifestor says, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. They have some generator friends that are like, yeah. Generator friends have checked in with themselves. Do I want to do this? Yes. Okay. They're on board.
They bring the heat. They like bring the action. I love being around generators. It's my favorite thing.
Yes. So they get started. So the manifestor gets started. The generators keep things going. But then let's say going along, there's like a little snag. So then the manifestor is like, hey, projector friend, can you look at this and see what might need to be changed? And maybe they have a reflector friend as well, because those are the other two types, projectors and reflectors. Their abilities are unique, where they are more of a guide and a mirror to see what needs to be changed. So everybody has a role. One type is not better than the others. Although, and what's interesting is that our society wants us to be all like three types at once, and we can't.
Well, yeah, and my next question was, how has knowing your human design been helpful in your journey?
Oh, it totally explains to me why, like, I can do many things at once. Why I could be in a classroom and like handle something here, but like here's something over there, and be like, like to have like this overall like lots of energy. I can get a lot of things done versus maybe some other people that I know that are not able to do many things at once. So it's helped me, again, recognize myself, see my gifts, recognize someone else has different gifts, and let them off the hook for the stuff that they can't do because they're not designed to do that.
Yeah. Well, how has human design and Colby kind of overlapped for you, and how do those work together in your life?
Well, really, just like I said, like since I use those two systems and I know them for myself, I can kind of guess, like if I'm meeting somebody, I can, after I've known them for a little while and had some experience with them, that I can kind of guess where they are. And it helps me lower my expectations sometimes, because sometimes I set my expectations like up here a lot. So it allows me to just be more real and be like, well, let's just let them be who they are.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
it gets rid of a lot of guilt, really, is what it's done for me. It's given me it's allowed me to let go of guilt.
Well, I've noticed, if I may make a reflection, knowing that you're higher on the systems part, I've noticed that you're like, what I've seen is, let me find a system that I know is out there, right? And then also combined with, as that generator, like when you feel that like, that response, when you feel the yes in your generator, it's like when your generator says yes, it says, let me go follow the system and I'm going to go do. Right. And it's just, there's like this alignment that happens in you, and it's like, woo, woo, right? Like my husband's a generator, and it's like when I can tell when he's generating and doing things that he loves versus doing things that he doesn't love. And like,
Yes.
that's been a really interesting thing. And actually, I've already thrown him under the bus in this interview, so we'll go for a second one. So we're at an interesting point. Casey, when we had our sons, Casey was the one, Suri decided to talk on that one. When we had our son, we decided that Casey would be the stay-at-home parent. And we're at a place where he's starting to think about what he wants to do next. And it's really interesting that I can see him generating out of expectation versus generating out of
Response.
what lights him up. Yeah. And the pre-programming of our culture of expectation to say, you're a man, this, this is what work, do, and what providing is supposed to look like. And like, I can see how like, it's just like, it's almost like the gears of his generator, like
that happens.
Lock up. Like almost, Philip Shepard had this quote of, we live in a culture where it feels good doing what how did he say this? I'm messing up. There's a part of us that feels good doing what we're supposed to do, even though doing what we're supposed to do doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's like, I can see him like get locked up in that. Yeah. Versus, starting to, I'm like, get curious and like, what's lighting you up and what do you want to follow?
Well, with that, instead of open-end questions, give him some yes/no questions.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Oh. When a generator is stuck, give them yes/no questions so that they, whatever kind of generator they are, that they can activate the sacral part that gives them that yes/no response.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what his authority is in human design, if he needs to take more time. Or if he's like in the moment. So that helps you too, right? It helps you plan stuff too.
And that, I think that brings it to that embodiment piece, because I mean, just speaking in general to generators, you have to know what a yes feels like. You have to know it's not a yes. It's when that generator yes, like comes out, that is the embodiment piece of this, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I'm an emotional person. So it's like, I almost have to ride the wave.
Yes, exactly.
I have to wait in a strange way. It's like, once I've ridden the wave of all my emotions, it's almost like there's this little place where I just know, and it's actually like not emotional in a weird way. It's just very clear. It's very neutral.
That's perfect. So,
which is so fucking hard.
Right, it is. It is for the ones who have the emotional authority.
And I have to wait for an invitation as a quick start. God, what was the universe thinking when they created me? Quick start, wait for an invitation.
It allows you to sit back and see all the things.
Yeah.
And just be like, I'm just going to wait here and see who's going to ask me for what I know.
Yeah. Mary Pat, may I reflect something that I think is just brilliant about who you are?
Sure. Thank you.
And then hope that it leads to some sort of question or amazing epiphany. Okay, so it's a random story. So I once went on this retreat, and a friend of mine was there. I met her there, but she's now a friend of mine. And she, at this retreat center, there was a shaman, and she scheduled a session with the shaman where literally for 45 minutes, he just looked at her. And she said it was one of the most like insane experiences of her life. That's how I feel about you. I feel like just being in your presence, like, again, like you have this ability, like you bring people in, and I feel like I connect. And I also notice, just as we're talking here, as I'm like doing this, it's interesting that I feel like one of your abilities and why everybody needs to go and schedule their session with you and just be in your presence is because it's like just sitting in relationship to you. You are so grounded and so like that acceptance that you speak of, it is so present in you. And I notice just being in your presence, I'm like, oh, I see where I'm like blocking myself. I see where I'm like holding things. And it's such that it's a process of self-discovery just to be in your presence.
Wow. Thank you. I really don't know what to say to that. That's awesome.
I think that's my invitation of like, everybody just go be in session with her, just because again, I feel like what we're talking about today sometimes doesn't have words.
It doesn't. And what we're talking about today is also like why I came into coaching, because massage didn't let me get, I couldn't, like, it didn't happen. Like all of this depth, when people would just come in for massage, they weren't getting the depth. Right? And I'm like, damn it, they are missing out. But I also know that I'm intense, right? There is an intensity about me as well.
Lovingly intense.
But people have to be willing to accept it, right? They have to be willing to come into that. Otherwise, just like, as you know, as a projector, stuff I say, just, if you're not invited, it just.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is something like, what I love about what we do with Body Mind and using Kolbe and using human design and infusing it to all the things that you're already doing is, I forget where I was going with this. What do I love about this? Words. What I love about our work is I know people come to us, and I'm guessing people come to you. I know some people who have worked with you. They come to you with a certain agenda of a certain, external thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about Body Mind is that it is the inner journey that is the path.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening right now, who might be caught up on the external, who's kind of like, you ladies are crazy. Y'all like, trust me, I embodiment, like this work has practical application in the external, but most people think it's just the external and they miss the goal that is like the inner work.
Right.
For anybody who's listening right now, who might be like starting that journey, who might be curious about that, like, what would you want to say to them? To help them take their next step?
Well, first of all, I invite you even right now just to take a breath, right? Mm-hmm. Just be where you are right now and just feel your glutes, feel your feet, whatever, just be right here. And as you do that, more and more, you know that there's more in you than just, what the shell, than just the body. There's more in you. And getting to understand your process, your genius, leads you to your own self-acceptance and then allows you to do things your way. It helps you to, even though you're going to have moments of comparison, to then like have that old pattern, that old neural pathway come up and see it and then be like, oh yeah, that's what that is. But I don't have to do that this way. I do things a little differently now. So it gives you a space to pause, to make better choices, or not better choices, but just different choices than maybe you had in the past.
I love that. I love how you are demonstrating, like you bring in that practical Kolbe, you bring in that woo human design, and then you also bring in that embodiment piece. Like you literally show us just by being you. I love being around you because it's so palpable. I hope forever is listening. Can you feel it? Can you feel just like we come down? This also showed up just to give an example of, I think, what's possible when you live what Mary Pat is so brilliantly demonstrating, and just by being who she is. So we know a mutual person who got to be on the receiving end of the genius of Mary Pat. And this is somebody that is close in my life. And I just want to say thank you, because through this work of self-acceptance, I saw this person make a really powerful decision in her life. She chose to leave her job, which was something that, I had known was on the horizon for years. And I saw this person swirl and swirl and swirl, and the indecision and the comparison and the who I'm supposed to be and what, all the things. And I just saw, like, she stepped into coaching with you, she came back down, and then she made that embodied choice.
Yes.
And she trusted herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she chose to leave, and let's be transparent, it was a job in education. She chose to leave that job right before COVID. And like every day, every time I see her, she's like, I am so glad you introduced me to Mary Pat. I couldn't have imagined what would have happened if I never made that choice. So this, I know. So I say this, I say this lovingly. Can I just be your friend, Mary Pat? Because you're fucking baller. You're fucking baller. And this grounded presence that you demonstrate for everybody who is listening. And I think there's also so many practitioners who have this quality that you have. It's what draws them to massage. And then, oh my God, I might have to ask you, it's what drew you to massage, but there was like that missing piece, right?
Yes, totally. Because I'm fixing the body, but not able to go deeper.
What did that feel like for you in a session? What did you notice? What was that experience?
Before like a non-BodyMind coaching session?
Yeah.
Well, before I got the question from you of how do you want to feel? It was just like, it was flat. I would still do my thing, and people would still be like, wow, never had a massage like that before. I'm like, fuck yeah, I know. Because it's me. It's not just the massage. You're getting me. So I would enjoy the depth of the treatments that I would give that way. But I loved it even more when you introduced the question of how do you want to feel? Because that brought some creativity and even more ownership of the massage. Right? Because before, it's all on you, the therapist, or me, the therapist, to make them feel better, versus how do you want to feel? Oh, I have to own something here. Okay. Like they have to be more involved, which I love, because then I don't like responsibility. Okay. I don't like it, which is probably why I stopped teaching too. That was a lot of responsibility. And coaching also, the responsibility is on the client. But let's talk about massage for a minute. When they would have to like respond to me, they'd be like, oh, I just want to be relaxed. I'm like, okay, what does relaxed look like to you? Like, is it calm? Is it energized? So it invited more conversation and allowed them to have ownership of the experience, not just to come in and check out. But I'm like, that was perfectly acceptable. If that's what they needed to do and they verbalized it, all right, I can deliver that, right? The ones that I hated the most were like, because some people have this gift, I do not. They're like, oh, my last therapist, they could just touch me and know what I needed. I'm like, that's nice. I'm not that therapist. Where do you want to start? Like, where do you want to start? What do you want to feel like at the end? So I loved it because it took the responsibility off of me and gave it to them, which made it a more empowering session for them in return. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Well, and I'm curious how, just with coaching as well, like, so you talk about the magic question that brought more creativity, and I love that. And then with coaching, how did that shift it as well from just like a massage treatment to something more?
Well, they get even more of what you observed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was probably like the first time I'd really put it all together at that live event with my lovely partner Chantel. So it allowed me to like bring it all together, right? So it's not just how does the body want to feel? It's like, okay, we've talked about some things. How do we want to feel
Mm-hmm.
moving forward? Great. Let's get that in the body. Let's get that embodiment piece, the body mind piece. And then, when they get off the table, it's like, they've had time to be with this new emotion, this new feeling that they want to have, and they hopefully have that in their body now. And then they can make a choice from a different place, just like you waiting for your wave, and you make your choice at your neutral place. It's coming from a different place. It's not coming from the fear or the lack. It's coming from it's that growing into part. It's that becoming who you're supposed to be part that gets to come forward.
You just said something that I think is genius, that I think every single holistic practitioner, I think this was what I loved about massage from the very beginning. And you just, I think, said it. It was, we're able to cultivate the feeling of who somebody gets to be. Like that becoming that you talk about, it's literally an embodied experience.
Yeah.
And then we help them like actually bring it into their life.
Yeah.
Like it's so amazing and so profound.
It is. It's beautiful work.
It is. It is.
And
So
I feel very lucky to do it.
I feel very lucky to just be in your presence and experience it. So awesome. Mary Pat, where can people find you if they're curious about learning more about working with you? And I also want to just put a plug, because you also, for other coaches, you also, you coach clients, and you also help coaches better understand their clients using Kolbe and human design, correct?
Yes. So
yes,
any and all of you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Intentional Flow. And you can email me at intentionalflow@gmail.com. And yeah, for you coaches out there that like human design, but you don't want to feel like you have to become the human design expert to like implement it with your clients, contact me, because I love that part.
Yes.
Because I do a whole report, share it with you and them on a call. It's so much fun because you know your client, and then I'm giving some other information. They're like, oh, I totally see that in you. It's like double validation, which is one of the things I really enjoy about human design. But those calls are so fun.
Yes, all of it. And also, I just invite everybody to go be in your presence, because it's just amazing. And I think intentional flow, like very well chosen words to describe who you are and what you do. Hands down.
Can I also be silly? Because this is another part of me. Sometimes I just say stuff that's
Sassy
odd.
Pat.
Sassy Pat. That's right. I like when you were like Mary Pat MP. I'm like, oh, I'm going to say Sassy Pat in there, but
Sassy
don't
Pat.
Don't want to give it too many names. But oh heck, where was I going with it? What were we saying there, Laura?
You said, is it okay if I be a little silly, goofy?
Oh, intentional flow. That's right. If you go with the initials, it's IF, which is if. Which is possibility.
So what might be possible when you fully love and accept yourself?
Yeah.
Ooh. I'll write that one down and think about that one a little bit for myself this afternoon.
Excellent.
All right. And for anybody who wants to explore that question, you should go contact and have a session with Mary Pat.
Exactly. It'd be fun.
Amen. All right. Thank you, my dear. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You are all amazing, and we'll see you next time.